Today, we'll be talking to Skills and Viva expert John Mighell, who, like myself, also works at Microsoft. But before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. So we do have time at the end of this event for Q&A from the audience. And here we basically just outline how you can go about leaving a question. It's pretty straightforward. On the event page, you would just scroll down to the comment section, you type out your question, and then you click post. And again, we do have time at the end for Q&A, so feel free to go ahead and leave your questions there now, and we'll make sure that John has time at the end to answer them. Okay, and without further ado, welcome, John. John, I think it would be great if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself, maybe a little on your role, the work that you do, just to give the audience a little bit of background before we start.
Yeah, thanks, Lazari, and hi, everyone. As Lazari mentioned, my name is John Mighell. I'm on the Viva team. I've been on the Viva team here at Microsoft since actually really the very beginning, since we were originally going to call it something else besides Microsoft Viva. Glad we landed on Microsoft Viva. And I've been leading our Viva Learning product marketing and product strategy for the last couple of years, and also recently now took on leadership of Skills in Viva, which we announced about 6 weeks ago in mid-October at HR Tech in Vegas. So looking forward to talking to you all today and going a little bit deeper into this exciting new announcement for us.
Great, thank you so much, John. And okay, I guess we could start off with, can you give us, John, a high-level overview of what exactly Skills in Viva is and how someone would use it?
Yeah, definitely. So the way to think about Skills in Viva is not as a new app in the Viva family of products and apps, but instead as a new horizontal service that supports all of the existing Viva applications. So this is something that we're building. We have a foundation, I'll talk about it in a second, that's derived from our Microsoft Graph, also from a partnership that we have with LinkedIn, and also leveraging any of the existing skill taxonomy or ontology work that our customers have already done. So we're taking kind of a flexible based approach, but the idea is that we want to enhance and make more intelligent all of our different Viva experiences and also experiences outside of Viva. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but you know, we're building, of course, skills into our Viva apps like Viva Learning, right? That makes a lot of sense. We want to make the learning experience more personalized, more relevant by building that layer of skills. So an individual can say, hey, I want to upskill or grow or learn more about this specific skill area, and then their learning experience will be catered and adjusted accordingly. We're also able to derive what we call inferred skills, so what we think people have in terms of their skill capabilities, and then we're also building a set of reporting on that so that organizations and HR leaders can use that information to make decisions to help optimize their business and make more agile. So those are some of the initial use cases. I'll go a little bit deeper into those, but let me talk now about kind of the 3 pillars for how we're building the solution. So the first is what we're calling AI-driven inferencing, and this is really kind of the lifeblood of a skill solution, is the inferencing capability, right? Anyone can go in and tag a profile and say, yeah, you know, I have this skill on a profile, and that's good. We want to enable users to manually add skills to their profile and confirm those skills, but it's also really important to recognize that, just being realistic, not every single person is going to go and keep their skill profile updated. So what we need to have is this really highly accurate inferencing engine that derives skills that we can associate with individuals, even without them taking any action on that. And that takes a lot of data and a lot of AI processing behind it to make that engine accurate. So I have a little diagram I'll show on the next slide, but that is a big component of what we're building. And we think that what we're doing here is kind of a novel and exciting approach based on some of the proprietary data set and also taxonomy structure that we have within the Microsoft family. The second component here is we're taking an open ecosystem approach. So this is another top question or top concern that I hear from customers as we first started kicking the tires on this concept of skills is, you know, I love the idea, love everything that you're talking about here, but I've already started on a skills journey, right? Maybe you already have some skill framework in your company already. Maybe you already have a skill taxonomy, or like a lot of large enterprise organizations that I'm talking to, maybe you have multiple skill taxonomies inside your company, and you want to be able to rationalize those and make sure that you're not having to start from scratch as you're adopting this new Skills in Viva based approach. And so by taking an open ecosystem methodology here, we're enabling kind of what we call a bring your own taxonomy type of approach, and you can leverage our out-of-the-box skill taxonomy that just comes with Skills in Viva if you want to. But if you've already gone down the road a few steps in your skills architecture in your organizations, we're also allowing you to leverage that. And that can be a custom skill taxonomy that you developed. It could be an HCM system that you're already working with, like SAP or Workday. We're building out an API-based approach and also just a taxonomy deduplication approach that allows you to leverage those existing investments that you've made. And then the last point here, as I'm sure you've heard lots of folks talk about with our different Viva apps and services, is everything we're doing here with skills is in the flow of work. And we know that that's been kind of a core challenge with skills tech adoption in the past, is just engagement, right? And so by bringing these skills experiences front and center into the flow of work, natively integrated in those tools and apps and services that people already use as part of their everyday, it just makes it that much more engaging, that much more likely that people are going to engage in the skills experience. So those are the pillars of what we're doing with Skills in Viva. Now, Lazari, if you go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more deeply about our architecture. And this is what we lovingly call as a marketecture diagram. So it doesn't go all the way in terms of all the technical details, but hopefully this gives you a sense of how Skills in Viva works. So a couple of important points to mention here. If we look on the bottom left-hand side, we've got this data set that we call the Microsoft Graph. Some of you, or maybe all of you on the call, are already familiar with this, but just to recap what it is, the Microsoft Graph is a set of data that we have access to at Microsoft, which tells us, what are people doing as part of their day-to-day work within the productivity suite. So what types of documents are they editing? What types of enterprise search terms are they entering in? What types of people are they collaborating with? What's their Azure Active Directory role profile and the other profiles that they engage with on a regular basis? What types of SharePoint sites are they active in, et cetera, right? We have a lot of data there, which gives us a really good window into what do you as an employee do as part of your day-to-day. And that in turn gives us a really rich data set that we can mine to derive inferred skills, right? So for example, if you're drafting a series of Word documents about advanced social media marketing strategies, that's probably a pretty good signal that you have a skill in that area. And that's something that we're able to leverage with this data set and then add that as an inferred skill on a user profile. So that's where a lot of our skills inferencing is based off of. We also support what we call role to skill mapping, so that if you already have a set of, you've got your company roles within your organization, you may have some skills that are just associated with those roles. We support the ability to import that as well, and then we pair that up with this Microsoft Graph data, and that builds a really rich infrastructure to build those skills inferences. Now, on the right hand or sort of middle of the slide here, you'll see the LinkedIn skills graph and then custom skill taxonomies in two separate bubbles. So this is just to recognize or represent that our customers are coming from a bunch of different starting points when it comes to skills. Some customers have, heard of skills, haven't really started on it. And for them, we're providing the LinkedIn skill taxonomy, which is a taxonomy of 39,000 plus skills. It covers most industries. It's a really comprehensive skill taxonomy. And so if you haven't already started on your skills journey, it's a great opportunity for you to just use that right out of the box. And you can, of course, configure it. So, for example, if, agriculture is not a skills topic that's really relevant for your business, you can just remove those skills from the LinkedIn skill taxonomy and just pare it down to only the skills that are actually relevant to your organization or to your industry. But you can use that skills graph, the LinkedIn skill taxonomy, right out of the box. So that's a really powerful tool that comes just built in with Skills in Viva for customers kind of in the early stages. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you were a little farther down the road and maybe you already have a skill ontology that you're using, you can also use that and bring that into Skills in Viva. You could also pair that up with the LinkedIn skill taxonomy. So if you want to use partially the LinkedIn skills taxonomy and then amend that with some of your own skills items that you've already done some work on, and then create this single kind of combined taxonomy, you can do that as well. So we're really taking a flexible approach here, which allows you to derive your taxonomy based on wherever you're starting from. That's then the set of skills that we use to build those inferences on based on that data layer that I mentioned. So then on top of all of this sits our AI-powered inferencing. So we take all of those signals, your taxonomy, the Microsoft Graph data, your role to skill mapping. In the future, we'll also bring in things like if you're an expert or you're listed on a bunch of different Viva topics, that's another input for us that gives us a good signal that you're probably fairly knowledgeable in this area. and we'll continue to add different data signals to this in the future. But all of those then feed into our AI inferencing engine, which then puts out a set of inferences. And so these are suggested skills that we think that a user has. And then those will show up in different Microsoft Viva and Microsoft 365 surfaces that I'll go over in a minute when we get into the scenarios. So we're really excited about this. We think, there's a couple of exciting things here. One, the relationship with LinkedIn. We're really pumped to be delivering a product service like this into market. There's a close partnership with LinkedIn. I know that's something that a lot of our customers have been asking for a long time. And then we just think that leveraging that graph data allows us to really create an interesting and accurate set of inferences.
Thank you so much, John. That was a really, really great description. I think it was really helpful too that you went over what the 3 pillars are and how people would use skills in Viva. So again, that was a really great description. But I think it's also a really great segue to the next question, which is why do we build skills in Viva and what are the business needs that you're solving for?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And I think ultimately what it comes down to here is the ability to accurately take as most advantage as possible of your existing employee base, right? And we know that employees have an individual like myself or anyone on this call or Lazari, you, we're more than just our role. We're more than just our title as a senior marketing manager or whatever, right? We have a dynamic skill set that each of us encompasses that's comprehensive, right? And it's partially skills that I've developed in this role. It's partially skills I've developed in the company I was at before Microsoft. It's partially skills that I've developed as part of my learning journey. And it's also partially skills that I've developed just as part of my life outside of Microsoft, right? And so being able to recognize that dynamic skill set and then associate that with an individual really allows companies to take advantage of that full skill set and also match people to the right opportunities where they're going to feel like they're making the most impact, they're taking the most advantage of all of their skills that they bring to the table, and also it's good for the company. The other component here is there's a real agile aspect of this, and we know that things are rapidly changing in the technology marketplace specifically. And we look at things like Copilot and all of the different advances that have happened on the generative AI front, even in the last 6 to 8 months. We know that there's going to need to be a set of new skills that employees need to develop in order to keep pace and take advantage of these new tools. Things like AI prompt engineering is a great example. And so being able to structure your learning experiences, structure your career development experiences, and have an agile workplace talent mobility approach where you can match people based on their skill sets to the right roles, all of that's going to be critical to take advantage of this super quickly changing technology marketplace. And so we think that building this skills foundation allows you to take advantage of all those different aspects, and also it really positions companies well to say, okay, we're going to take advantage and adopt this new Copilot tool, and we're also going to develop the skill sets of our company to be highly skilled in things like AI prompt engineering so that they're good at taking advantage of these tools. So pairing together that upskilling of your workplace with these new technology tools, we think is really that equation to help people take advantage of the opportunities that the near future is going to deliver.
I love the answer. I agree. I feel like there's always so much change, and I just think skills in Viva is kind of like your helper. It's just equipping you with the skills that you need with all the evolutions that are occurring. So thank you, John. And I'm sure viewers are also very interested to know, how is our approach unique? What are the differentiated aspects of our skills solution?
Yeah, so I think there's 3 items here that I would focus on. The first is our relationship that we have with LinkedIn, right? As a company owned by Microsoft, we have a fantastic relationship with that team, and we're able to leverage their skill taxonomy, like I talked about. And again, that's just included with skills out of the box, which is actually it's a lot of value, right? Having a taxonomy that's that comprehensive and that well researched and that backed up by all of the billions of signals that the LinkedIn team has access to as part of their different product suites and services, that data and all of that taxonomy that's built on top of just being part of skills in Viva is a huge value. So that we think is kind of a unique aspect. The second one I would mention is the Microsoft Graph data. All right, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but just having access to that regularly updated kind of what are people doing as part of their actual day-to-day work information allows us to build a much more accurate inferencing engine versus, some of the other skills-based approaches in the past where you're really only able to look at kind of a very thin slice of data about an individual. So maybe you can see what's their role, what are the previous roles that they've had in the company, and maybe you're able to see like their learning history, for example, what learning courses have they taken. And those are valuable inputs, but we don't think that really tells the whole picture of the skills that an individual has. Whereas when you look at what someone does as part of their day-to-day work and all those signals that I was talking about earlier, that for us paints a much clearer and more comprehensive picture. And of course, we also take those other aspects into consideration as well. So we also look at your role and your role history, and we also look at your learning history and all of that stuff, but we pair that up with your actual day-to-day activity. So that we think makes a more accurate inferencing aspect of skills, and also that's regularly up to date, right? Because people, if you're specifically looking at roles to define skills, sometimes people don't change roles very often. And so they're still developing skills, but maybe their role title hasn't changed. And so their skill profile can easily get stale versus the Microsoft Graph data is always up to date, right? And it's always taking into account the latest stuff that you're working on and the latest skills that you're utilizing as part of your day-to-day workflow. And so that makes it a more up-to-date and more refreshed data set that we can pull inferences from. So those are the first two. And then the third, I would say, is just the flow of work component, right? We know that it's been a challenge, engagement, and you can have the greatest, most accurate skill profiles in the world, but if they're locked away on these back-end HR systems that people don't go to very often, they're just not utilized, right? And people don't use them, and they're just become not useful. Whereas what we're doing here, we're bringing skills into the flow of work. We're adding skills to your profile card in Microsoft 365, which is a hugely, highly active engagement surface. That type of thing brings it front and center, and then people go, oh, wow, look, here are my skills. I can easily update my skills from here. That drives more engagement. That makes the whole opportunity more valuable. And so those three things, we think that we're uniquely positioned to deliver as a Microsoft solution, and we're really excited to do so.
Thank you, John. Those were some really great 3 points. So moving on to our next question, I think you touched on this earlier, but now you can talk through it. What scenarios are we initially targeting?
Yeah, so there's 3 initial scenarios that we're targeting. So let's go through these one by one. The first is upskilling and reskilling. So this is really taking the Viva Learning experience that exists today and making it much more intelligent, much more personalized, much more relevant for individuals, and just smarter, right? By adding this layer of skills intelligence to it. So what you'll be able to do is when you go into Viva Learning, an individual will be able to say, hey, these are the skills that I'm interested in developing. You can select those and you can edit them at any time if you want to. Once you do that, your entire Viva Learning experience will be catered based on those skills that you've indicated that you want to learn about. So you'll be able to see intelligent skill recommendations, and these are going to be based on all of those signals that I was talking about, right? So you'll say, okay, I want to develop my skills in artificial intelligence. So that gives us a good signal that, okay, maybe we want to surface to you this LinkedIn Learning course about artificial intelligence. We're also able to see from our graph data that you have some foundational knowledge here. So maybe we'll suggest to you, level 200 or 300 course, because we can see that you don't need a beginner course based on your user data, but you've indicated that you're interested in this topic, right? That's an example. You're also able to discover content based on skills. You're able to cater your search results by skills. And one of the really cool things that we're also able to do here from an admin perspective is, regardless of all the different content sources you have aggregated with Viva Learning, because Viva Learning is a content aggregator. So let's say maybe you have SAP SuccessFactors as a backend LMS, and you have Skillsoft and Coursera as content sources, and you're also using Microsoft 365 trainings, right? You've got all that different content aggregated in Viva Learning. What we're able to do with Skills in Viva is actually automatically tag all of those individual learning objects that come from all those different sources with skills based on the metadata that we ingest from those different sources. So admins are not going to have to go in with every object and say, okay, this one's about communication, this one's about leadership, this one's about AI, right? We'll just automatically do that for you. Of course, you can go in and edit it if you want to, but then that allows the whole experience to become that much more intelligent. So now when you're searching for content, you're able to pull up a certain set of learning objects, regardless of which source they're from, based on their skill tagging, which is derived from the metadata associated with that learning object. So I think that's going to be really cool. And of course, as we're bringing things like Copilot into Viva Learning as well, you'll be able to just ask your Copilot, hey, I want to learn more. I want to grow my skills in, this specific area. And then Copilot will be able to just pull up a course for you based on all those inputs that I was just talking about. And it's going to just make it so much easier to find and discover learning content that's relevant to you. And we know that that's a critical part of the learning experience, is just being able to find the content that's valid and interesting for you. So we're really excited for that. If you go to the next one, Lasari. The next category here we're calling strategic workforce planning. So what this is this is in Viva Insights. So this is now illustrating what I was talking about earlier, right? Skills in Viva is just enhancing and augmenting all of our existing Viva apps that already exist. So this is now a new dashboard which will exist in Viva Insights, which will allow you to drill into your organization, and you can slice and dice this data based on any of your existing data structures that you already have in Viva Insights. And so if you want to look at, let's look at my machine learning skills across my different organizations, and I can drill in and say, oh, okay, my engineering team actually doesn't have a ton of skills in machine learning. And to me, that's a little bit of a concern as a leader, because I know we're developing this product line, which is going to require that skill set to accelerate our time to market. And so that to me is a good signal that maybe I want to run an upskilling campaign around machine learning targeted specifically to my engineering team to help people kind of grow in that area and enhance our ability to deliver that product. So that's the type of thing you're able to do with this. This dashboard will enable you to also see a split of confirmed skills versus inferred skills. So what that looks like is, you can kind of see it. I know the screenshot's a little bit small here, but in the bars in the bottom left of that screenshot, the light blue reflects inferred skills. So these are all the ones that we've derived from the Microsoft Graph data and everything else that I was talking about. And then the blue bar indicates confirmed skills. So these are skills that an individual has said, yes, I have this skill, I'm confirming it, and I'm adding it to my profile. And from there, you can also even drill down further into proficiencies. So depending on what proficiency scale you want to use, whether that's a 5-point proficiency scale, 4-point proficiency scale, whatever, we're going to have a flexible approach that allows you to choose which proficiency scale you want to use. You'll be able to drill down into that and see, okay, I have a fair amount of confirmed skills in this specific department, but most of them are at the beginner level. Don't have very many advanced or expert level skills in that area. And again, that may be a signal that you want to run an upskilling campaign, or you want to promote some new learning objects, or maybe you just want to, reshuffle some individuals across your different teams that may have that skill set. So this type of insight in this dashboard will allow your leaders, your HR leaders and your org leaders to make those types of decisions. Of course, you can use this data for a lot of things. We're really excited about this. If you go to the next one, Lasari. And then this one, finally, you've heard me say it before, it's my favorite buzzword, but in the flow of work, right? Skill discovery. There's a couple of really exciting ways that we're doing this. One, I mentioned it already, but the Microsoft 365 profile card will now have skills on it if you have a skills license. So you're all familiar with the Microsoft 365 profile card. When someone sends you an email, in Outlook or a Teams chat, and you go, who's this person? You click on their avatar and you're able to see their org information, their contacts, some additional interesting stuff. And now you'll also be able to see their skills, their confirmed skills that they've added to their profile. So this is a great way for, you just understand, what is this person bringing to the table? If you're, for example, spinning up a quick project team to tackle this, time sensitive issue, you can look for some people and say, oh, this guy's got a bunch of skills in this area, or, ooh, she looks like she's an advanced expert in these specific concepts that we really need expertise on. And you can use that to pull together the right team with the right skill set to execute on the project that you're looking for. Or it's just a great way, as I mentioned earlier, to just drive engagement and promote people to keep their skill profiles updated. Because as you're clicking in and you're saying, oh, this person's got a bunch of skills on their profile, I should add my skills to my profile, right? And it also helps you become more discoverable in your organization. Another future scenario that we're planning to light up tentatively, this isn't on the confirmed roadmap yet, but something that we're excited about, is the ability to actually search by skill and pull up individuals that have that skill. So you'd be able to go into your enterprise search surface and say, all right, I want to find people that are skilled in LLM. You just search for LLM, and then you would pull up a list of individuals in your organization that are skilled in that area. And again, that's a great scenario for, if you're putting together a project team and you need expertise in a specific area. So those are the first 3 scenarios that we're rolling out. Lots more to come on this. We're just kicking off private preview. I'll get into the timelines a little bit later, but these are the first 3, and then we'll have more to come in the future.
Great. Thank you so much for walking us through that, John. So what are you most excited about with Skills in Viva?
Yeah, it's a good question. So 2 things. One is, like I mentioned earlier, I really think that having this skills architecture is going to be the precursor that allows organizations to successfully take advantage of this coming wave of AI technology tools. Right? I really think that if you don't have this, like, anyone can use ChatGPT, or any of your favorite LLMs to go and write a poem or something, right? Like, that's the easy stuff that everyone's toyed around with. But to actually leverage those tools and make them useful for your business and useful for individuals on a day-to-day level, you actually have to have skills to do that. You have to understand what's the right way to architecture a prompt to get the right thing that you're looking for, right? And I feel like that's a skill set that pretty much everyone is going to need to develop as these AI tools become more prevalent. And to me, having a skill architecture like this and having the learning experiences that are skills powered is going to be a real precursor to companies being successful. So to me, this feels like a really strong way to get a step up and take advantage of those AI tools. So that's one. And then the second is, I was actually just talking to an analyst from Gartner yesterday about this, and I was like, hey, can you just, like, how many customers do you talk to regularly that are fully skills enabled organizations, and they're like, skills, everything is skills, and it's awesome? And he was like, it's very few, right? A lot of people are interested in this concept, but it's proven a little bit difficult and tricky to implement. And I think that the approach that we're taking here really with the LinkedIn skills graph out of the box taxonomy, with the graph inferences just derived from all that backend data that we already have, and the way that it's prevalent in those flow of work surfaces, to me, feels like a really good recipe to actually make it easy for companies to deploy this type of solution. So, I would say, one, from just like a general perspective, it feels like skill solutions are going to be the way to take advantage of AI tools in the future. And then secondly, from a specific Skills in Viva perspective, this to me seems like the right mix of ingredients that will allow for a successful skills implementation.
I agree that those are all very, very exciting. So that's a little bit about what you think is exciting. What have you been hearing from customers?
Yeah, so I would say the top couple themes that I hear from customers. One is, finally, you guys are doing something with LinkedIn. So, Microsoft purchased LinkedIn, I don't know, a few years back, 6-7 years ago, whatever it was. And this is one of the first solutions that we're really co-delivering with them in market. So very excited about that. That's one component. The other component is for customers that are already using a Workday or an SAP or some other system for skills. It's like, hey, how can you make sure that the work we've already done on that side of the house speaks to what you're doing with Skills in Viva? We want to make sure that, we're not getting rid of Workday, right? And what we're doing here with Skills in Viva is not trying to replace a Workday or anything like that. It's simply just providing a better, more accessible and easier way to manage and discover skills, and also a better inferencing approach. So, the concept is a user, if they're in their Skills in Viva skills editor and they're looking at their skills profile, they would see the same set of confirmed skills in that surface as they would see if they went to their Workday skills profile. And so making sure that that interoperability supports both ingress and egress and skill syncing across platforms is something that a lot of the customers that I've been talking to are kind of concerned about and want to make sure that we're doing. So very much are doing that. And then the last one is, I'll bring it up just because I've literally heard this exact phrase from multiple analysts and multiple customers, is that the Microsoft graph data that I've been talking about, I've heard so many people refer to this as we're sitting on a gold mine. right? Like a gold mine of information in terms of deriving skills. And so for me, I know that the graph is used in a lot of different applications across Microsoft and Microsoft 365, but to me, this feels like a really exciting way to leverage that data that we at Microsoft are the only ones that really have full access to the Microsoft 365 graph data. There is an API which gives some limited access to graph data that anybody can access, but we at Microsoft have a much more comprehensive view of the entirety of the graph data. And so I think that that is just a huge leg up, and customers are really recognizing that as well.
I love all of the excitement. And our last question that I'm sure also has a highly anticipated answer. When will Skills in Viva be available?
Yeah, so let me share with where we're at right now. So I'll give you just a quick timeline. So we announced Skills in Viva about 6 weeks ago in October at HR Tech. We further kind of amplified that news, and maybe some of you were at Microsoft Ignite a couple of weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving, where we were on stage showing a little bit more details about it. And then we're just now kicking off our private preview. We have an invite-only private preview with a set of customers that's just going to be starting next week. And then as that private preview progresses, we may expand that at some point later in kind of the spring timeframe of 2024. And then we expect for the solution to be generally available at sometime in H2 of 2024.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, John, for all your great in-depth responses. We did have a couple of questions come in live from the audience that we can also cover. So I'm just going to read those now. So the first one was, how does Viva Skills work together with Viva Topics?
Yeah, good question. So right now the answer is the existing version of the product that we're taking into private preview next week does not currently work with Viva Topics, but we are building that, and that will become one of the inputs that we bring into Skills in Viva, is all of that topics information, because of course that's a hugely valuable signal for us that somebody has expertise in a specific area, is if they're on a topics page and they're editing that topic and they're the owner of that topic, right? That's a pretty clear signal that they have skills in that area. So that will become yet another signal that we bring into our inferencing engine, but we don't have that quite yet. We'll expect to have that in the next few months.
Okay, great. And the next question was, how does Viva Skills work together with Viva Learning? You're the perfect person to answer that, John.
Yeah, I am. I covered it a little bit already, but it's really just taking the existing Viva Learning infrastructure and all of the Viva Learning capabilities and just making them better with skills, right? So you'll be able to now search based on skills. You'll be able to see learning recommendations based on skills. You'll be able to use learning, the Copilot that'll be available soon in Viva Learning, to create a learning collection based on skills, right? As I mentioned, all of your learning objects in Viva Learning will be tagged by skills automatically based on our metadata search algorithm. And then, all of that information becomes that much more relevant. You can do things like create a learning academy, for example, based on developing a specific skill set. We've seen a bunch of customers create some version of a kind of AI fundamentals academy in Viva Learning, and that's a great usage of the Viva Learning structure with academy, but then also taking all the different skills, like AI associated skills learning objects, and populating them into that academy so that your users, they're like, hey, I hear about AI every day, all the time. Let me go to this academy so I can kind of understand what people are talking about. So that's just one of the applications, but we're really bringing skills into Viva Learning as a pervasive experience. So it'll be, Viva Learning is going to transition from what it exists today, which is a pretty well-functioning, well-featured LXP and content aggregator, to really a truly skills-based learning experience that still does all of that aggregation and LXP type functions as well.
Okay, thank you. Another question we had is, and this is a kind of a long question, so bear with me. Are there recommendations or templates for skill taxonomies companies can use to prepare themselves, parentheses, their internal learning content, for Viva Skills? Does LinkedIn share their taxonomy framework? Might be interesting, especially for companies that do not have a skill/role management yet.
Yeah. So good question. And the LinkedIn skill taxonomy that's going to come out of the box with Skills in Viva, really, that's where I would suggest if you or your company or your clients have not already started on their skills development journey, they don't already have a skills ontology, I would say just use the out of the box one that comes with Skills in Viva and just configure that accordingly, right? What you're able to do, what you'll be able to see in the admin version or the admin portal associated with your Skills in Viva service, your admins will be able to see the entire LinkedIn skill taxonomy, and it's broken out by different categories. So like the example I gave earlier was like agriculture, or there's another category for beauty or cosmetics, right? So those things. So that's a category, and within that category, there's like, I don't know, hundreds of skills, right, for each of those categories. So if any one of those is not relevant to your business or your industry, you can just turn those off, so that people can't select cosmetic related skills at Microsoft, because that's not super relevant to our industry, right? So you're able to take that LinkedIn skills graph based taxonomy as a baseline, trim it down to what you want, and then that's where I would suggest customers start. And then again, if you already have an existing skill taxonomy, you can take that and amend that to the skills from LinkedIn. So you can say, okay, this, I looked at the LinkedIn skills taxonomy, looks pretty good. I trimmed it down. I've got it down to this subset that's relevant to my industry. But then there's also a few really specific skills that are very, nuanced and specific to my industry or my business or my company, and I want to add those in as well. You can do that, right? So you can then amend the LinkedIn skill taxonomy with that set of hyper, focus skills that are relevant to you, and then that becomes your single source of truth, single taxonomy that underpins all these different skills experiences.
Okay, great.
And it is exportable. I should mention it's exportable as well. So once you've done that from the admin center, you'll be able to export that taxonomy and then use it in other ways if you want to.
Okay, perfect. And the next question was, what are the license requirements for Viva Skills?
Yeah, so good question. The way that you get skills in Viva is by purchasing a Viva Suite license. So this is licensed on a per user basis. So individuals that have a Viva Suite license will get access to all the different skills experiences that we've shown here. You will also get an access to a subset of these skills experiences if you just have a Viva Learning license. So if you just have a Viva Learning license, you'll be able to see just the learning scenarios that I was talking about. You'll see just those, and you'll also have your skills profile, but you won't get the other stuff like insights, the insights dashboard that I was talking about, or the future stuff that we'll be doing with topics and other Viva apps. So Viva Suite is really the way if you want to get access to everything, and then Viva Learning license if you want to get access to just the learning specific stuff.
Okay, perfect. And then the next question was,
sorry, Lazari, let me just add one more thing to that. I should mention that everything we're talking about here with skills in Viva and all the enhanced learning experience and the LinkedIn skill taxonomy, all of that just comes included with those licenses that I was just talking about, right? So you don't have to pay any extra for it. The Viva Suite license is at the same price that it's been, and you purchase that and you get access to all the skills capabilities. So for us, we actually think it's a huge value add to the existing suite licenses. I mean, even if you just said the taxonomy, even if you just said, hey, we're giving you the LinkedIn skills taxonomy as part of Viva Suite, even without all this other experiences that I've shown, that would be a lot of value. So, for us, we're pretty excited about that. We're happy to deliver that just as part of enhanced value to the existing licenses and not as a, additional add-on cost or anything like that.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think that's really important. And what I was going to say for the other question was, will we be able to build our own PowerBI reports with this data, or will it be restricted via the Viva Skills interface?
Yeah, so you will be able to, so with the data that's available in Viva Insights, that dashboard that I was showing, the Skills Insights report, you'll be able to export that in the same way that you're able to export data from Viva Insights in general. And then, as I mentioned, you're also able to export your skill taxonomy from the admin center. And whether that's, your combined taxonomy of your taxonomy plus LinkedIn taxonomy or whatever combination you're using, you're able to export that and use that as well.
Okay, perfect. And the next question was, will we be able to limit who can search for skills?
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to table that one because that specific feature is, as I mentioned, kind of a roadmap feature. So we haven't actually started developing it yet. We probably will add some level of admin control on those types of things, but yeah, that's something that we need to confirm in the future as we get a little bit closer to those scenarios and get that on our committed roadmap.
Okay, perfect. How does skills infer proficiency? Is there a way to connect behavior to results? Are actions being compared to a model or example of some kind?
Yeah, so this is a really good question. And let me just clarify, the initial inference engine that we're building does not actually infer proficiency level. So because you get into, it's really challenging to do that, right? I think that in the future, we may be able to do that, or at least kind of nudge that we think that you are, that you have this skill and at this proficiency level, but it's a challenge and there are some implications in doing that. So what we're doing initially is we're just suggesting or inferring to a user that, you know, we think you have this skill. We're not, you know, and then if you want to confirm that and add that to your profile, that's when you would add your own proficiency level. So that's the approach that we're taking right now, is that it's a AI takes the first draft, like many of our AI tools, of what we think your skills are, but then ultimately the user is in control of what skills they want to confirm, what skills they want to make available on their Microsoft 365 profile for others within their tenant to see, and also what proficiency level they want to associate with those different skills. And as I mentioned, the proficiency scales can be adjusted as well. So 3-point, 4-point, 5-point scale. That's, I guess, one other, to answer one of your other questions, Lazari, about customer feedback. One interesting thing is that a lot of customers are very passionate and opinionated on which is the best skill proficiency scale. There's staunch defenders of the 3-point scale, the 4-point scale. 5-point scale is pretty popular. You even got your 7-point scalers. Like, really, it's not something that we were anticipating. We thought we were just going to go out. We were just going to do a 5-point scale and say, you know, everyone will be fine with that. Not the case. Lots of people that are very, very set on the 4-point scale or otherwise. And then the other kind of component of that question, which I think is really good, is skill validation, right? So how can we accurately, we can suggest or infer that you have these skills based on the Microsoft Graph data, but is there an additional layer that we can build on top of that where we can actually more validate the skills that you have, right? And it's something that we're certainly thinking about. We don't have a 100% certain answer on how we're going to do this. We do intend to build a layer of skill validation into the product eventually as well, but there's a bunch of different approaches you can take there, right? You can do peer-to-peer assessments, you can do manager assessments, you can do things like you know, questionnaires as you're you know, labeling something. Yep, I'm a 5 out of 5 expert in this skill, and then you have to take a little quiz that kind of proves it. We could pull in things like industry certifications for more technical skills that have related certs, you know, and there's other approaches as well. So there's different ways that you can do that skill validation component. That's actually one of our open questions that we have for our private preview customers is, hey, of all these different approaches that we could take from a skill validation approach, what's the most valuable to you? Which one do you think is the most relevant? And which approach should we take there? So we're fairly open-minded on which approach to take at that there, but we do certainly want to bring some level of you know, additional validation into this skills experience as well.
Okay, great. Another question we have is, can we get a scenario type response to better understand what signals represent evidence of a skill? For example, how are particular social or leadership skills inferred from graph data? I'd like to understand what level of inference we can expect.
Yeah, so the example that I gave earlier, I'll just kind of go back to, which is, you know, this is kind of a basic one, but if we see that you are, you know, drafting multiple Word documents about advanced, you know, strategies in, you know, machine learning, you know, derivatives, then that gives us a pretty good indication that you may have a skill in machine learning. So when we see that, the graph data picks that up, and then that becomes a signal where we're able to say, okay, this person has a skill in that area. Or for example, or we think that you have a skill in this area, then you can choose to confirm that and add that to your profile. Or we can say, or we can look at, for example, you're the owner of multiple SharePoint sites that have this specific topic, and you've also uploaded a bunch of documents and recently edited documents in the specific topic area or that's related to this skill. And then from there, we can infer that you may have the skill in the area. We're also, part of the Microsoft Graph data as well is just, emails and Teams messages. Of course, I should note that all of the graph data is depersonalized and aggregated, so it's not like we use this data for anything else besides deriving tenant-specific skills like this. But those are the types of signals that we're able to use where we then infer that you have these specific skill capabilities. And then, as you mentioned earlier, in the future, we'll also bring in things like topics. So if you're the owner of a specific topic that's related to a specific skill, then we can infer that you have a skill in that area.
Okay, and then this is a long question, John, but it says, do a user's selected skills from the LinkedIn list, both endorsed and not, and the skills from jobs on their LinkedIn profile provide a significant part of what skills works with? That is, will a person's LinkedIn profile suddenly become much more important as it is directly attached to how they are deployed and maybe promoted at work?
Yeah, super good question. So let me first clarify that we're not at all connecting at this point. We're not at all connecting an individual's LinkedIn profile with their skills in Viva profile. Those things are totally separate, right? The way that we're deriving the skills taxonomy from LinkedIn is LinkedIn, has tons of signals. They've got billions of signals. They do a lot of research in this area. They've got all the signals from their, platform, and they have all the signals from their other apps and services that they deliver as well. And they've used all of those signals that are all aggregated and depersonalized again, and they've used that to derive, hey, we think these are the skills that just people have in general, right? And that's what comprises that entire 39,000 plus skill taxonomy. So that's not at all related to your individual profile or anything like that. That's just a skill taxonomy that is just the skills that people have in general. And then that skill taxonomy is what we bring into skills in Viva. So it's not at all connected to an individual's LinkedIn profile. Now, we have heard some customers requesting for us to make a linkage like that available. And that's something that we might do in the future. It's certainly not something that we're committed to doing right now or we have any plans to do. But if we hear additional customers requesting that, we may make it possible on an elective basis for a user to say, yes, I want to link my skills in Viva profile with my LinkedIn profile. And that would be something that would be done on an individual user basis. You would have the choice to link your profile or not. And then from that, we could, cross-reference skills. But that would only ever be done at an individual user's request or on an elective basis. And that's not something that we even have planned in the roadmap right now, but it is something that customers have started to ask us about.
Okay, perfect. I think that was the last question. So that basically wraps up our event. Feel free, everyone, to scan this QR code and connect with us on LinkedIn. John, thanks again so much for answering all of the questions that we got live and all your really great answers. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, so much. Happy to be here. And I know that we'll keep the forum here where folks can ask questions. I think we'll keep this live until kind of the end of the week. So if folks have additional questions, feel free to drop them in and I'll take a look at them and just answer it via text on the tech community. But yeah, thank you, everyone. We're really excited about what we're doing here with Skills. We so far have gotten pretty positive results or positive reaction, I should say, from customers. I know we're really excited to kick off our private preview and I'm really looking to delivering this next year. So thanks, everyone, and stay tuned for more news soon.
Thank you. We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks, everyone.